Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
You're going to want to pay attention, watch and listen to what we have today. It's probably going to answer questions that you've had about your life along the way when it comes to relationships. Why are we in relationships that don't serve us? How can we find the right types of relationships? Why can't we let go of the baggage of other relationships? We're going to boil it all down with an amazing psychologist. She works with couples, families, individuals on all different levels with all different modalities, including hypnotherapy, psychological evaluations, and she's also an amazing author. And she's with us again today. Dr. Ann Creekmore joins us. Welcome back, Ann. How are you?
Good. How are you, Steve?
I'm good. I'm glad we're talking about this today because more and more people I connect with, that seems to be the common denominator: relationships, finding the right ones. And I recently met a lot of new people, joined a group. It's been great. I feel like I've known them way longer than literally 3 weeks. Getting to know them better, but that's part of it. But those relationships that we've been in for a long time, that we know, if you deeply search inside, this is a bad idea. I don't know why I'm staying with this, person, or why I let this person still in my life. Why do we do that, Ann? Why are we afraid to let go of some people?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, there could be so many reasons for that. Sometimes we get attracted to people because they remind us of people, like one of our parents that we felt maybe we didn't get the love from that, that we really wanted. And this happens a lot in couples relationships where something will remind us of that parent, and like you've heard of, the woman who's had an alcoholic father and then marries an alcoholic. And it's like, well, why would you do that? Because you didn't like it before. But it's almost like it feels familiar. And so you can tolerate it, but also maybe you get the love that you were, wanted to get. And maybe, this is the time. So it's kind of being hopeful that things will be different.
Why do we want to connect with something from our past? And it's funny that you're saying that, because the group of people that I met recently, they were all random. I didn't seek them out. I didn't run into them. We were all just kind of put together. But as I look at them and call it analyze, one guy here in this group, he reminds me of two friends, if you put them together, that I grew up with when I was like 17 or 18. There's another guy that reminds me of another guy. Do we psychologically make a connection so that we feel more comfortable?
I think it's possible that we do. I mean, we can always, project onto people our ideas, and see it in them and actually elicit things from them as well that kind of fits with our view. It could be a combination of just getting attracted to certain people because they remind us, or we kind of assume, or we see it in them, or we do certain things that make it go in that direction.
So we've heard this term, opposites attract. Do they really?
Well, they can in certain ways. Sometimes opposite, like they say, like an introverted and an extrovert. Sometimes things that you can be opposite on can be beneficial. Like one person, say in a couple, is the handyman and person, and the other one isn't so handy or mechanical, and they help each other. That opposites can, or maybe the introvert extrovert, the extrovert helps the introvert get out more or have more relationships, and the introvert might be helping them kind of relax more or stay more in. Sometimes the opposites can be beneficial.
So it was said in a conversation recently that be the man who you would want your daughter to marry, because she is looking for that guy. She's going to try and find somebody who is like her father. Does that really happen?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, people supposedly there is a good book on this specifically. It's called, and it's about a form of therapy called imago therapy, like IMAGO. And it's by Harville Hendrix and his wife, which I should remember, but it's a second name and I don't remember it on the book. Getting the Love You Want. And they had been divorced. They were therapists. And then they met later and they decided to work on, well, what in the world went wrong with our relationships and our marriages? And we don't want to do it again. And they have this new, this therapy, not new, this is, decades old, but called imago therapy, where kind of our spouse is kind of the amalgamation, the combination of our mother and our father, the good and maybe the negative, and we feel comfortable with the good that we see, but then the negative we're trying to heal or somehow change so that we can, get the love we want this time.
Interesting. So if you were to look at that, let's say for a woman, let's say that her father left the family, just up and left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then what could she, and this could go in any direction, but what reasonably would she be looking for in relationships? Or what could she be looking for?
Right. Well, I mean, she would have a lot of obviously sensitivity to abandonment, and be looking for, and this is not looking for in a good way, because you're kind of asking me, well, what's the good thing she's looking for? But in a way, she's going to have trust issues and be kind of alert or triggered by any kind of things that probably would indicate abandonment. And be sensitive to those kind of things. So clearly she'd be looking for security, but at the same time, she's been, hurt. And if she hasn't had a ton of therapy and worked it through, then she's going to be seeing triggers of abandonment, of insecurity in the relationship. Not like what she wants to see, but things will appear that way because that's just what she's been taught happens, waiting for the shoe to drop, as they say.
So, and I would imagine since that she didn't have that loving connection so much, we would assume, because dad left with him, she's always going to be trying to seek that approval from men moving forward.
Yes. And also maybe perceiving them as not being approving and being angry or upset, that they're not. And when they might be, it might just be more of a trigger that, something. So a lot of times what happens is when something's happening, a little conflict or a problem in a relationship could be just a very small thing that could be resolved. But if it triggers an old pain or an old wound, it's like putting your finger in a wound, it hurts. And then you start reacting as if that's what's happening now. And then you can create it, almost provoke it. If you're upset with somebody, you're mad because you think they're treating you badly, and then you're, kind of blaming them, then they may start to push back, and actually reject you or be mad because you're saying mad things to them.
Or they're internalizing it in a different way, the way that they're framing it. Let's say, the woman's in a relationship with a man and the communication isn't that great. For whatever reason that might be, right. And she's not happy with it. She's going to take action, in a different, infidelity, whatever it might be. Still trying to find what she lost in her father.
Exactly.
She's always going to be until she heals or figures it out.
Right, exactly. Because if a child is felt abandoned, like at a young age, they can develop a lot of disorders like complex PTSD, the dissociative disorder spectrum kind of thing. And they can develop a narcissistic personality disorder even, and then, that's what they're bringing into the relationship, and it's got, or borderline personality, that abandonment, which is really kind of the dissociative stuff as well, the borderline. But so they may have these tendencies to just to perceive abandonment right where it isn't, or to act out, thinking the person's mistreating them, and they turn to a outside relationship to get their needs met. Don't have the skills to resolve it in their current relationship, and then act out.
And to your point, and in that situation, they may not be in their relationship not being treated poorly so much, but it's their perception, because they're not getting or seeing what they want. What do they want? Ultimately, approval from their father, from their father. And we're just using this one example of a woman,
right? Exactly.
Whose dad left.
No, exactly. And then they're feeling that because if there is that wound that they have, they don't feel good about themselves. So they don't feel that they're going to get the approval. So that's what they see happening in whatever's going on.
It's so sad in many regards, because so many families are broken up. So many negative things can happen because people haven't healed from what has happened to them in their childhood, and potentially things that they don't even realize because it's embedded in their subconscious. And I would have to believe many people coming from divorced families, especially when they were much younger, probably have a fear of abandonment.
Absolutely. And so you're just always going to be walking on eggshells, or looking around and seeing something bad's happening, and that will affect it to make something bad happen. And if you're arguing about things and can't really deal with the deeper issues, which is why I think it's just like so important, practical. Everybody. I mean, how many people have really come from that perfect, devoted parents that to help them at all the times? I mean, that's few and far between. And even if they were, stuff happened from the outside that interfered with it, right? So
totally.
Most people just need to have some therapy to discover their own selves and their own triggers, and don't bring that baggage into the relationship, and work it through in the relationship they're in, instead of looking elsewhere.
Well, you bring up a great point in that your parents are your pilots. And if your parents have things that they're dealing with, they're going to treat you a certain way. And I don't necessarily mean this in a bad way. It's just the way that you're brought up, because they're trying to figure it out.
Exactly.
So, right?
Exactly. And any traumas they experienced, apparently at different ages, they will start reacting and overreacting to accommodate those, and they're not even present in the situation.
That's where I'm going. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not that these parents mean to parent in a particular way. That's the only way they know. We don't go to school to be a parent. We're just going. We're kind of winging it, but a lot of us are winging it with trauma, and
exactly. So it was just so beneficial for people to go into therapy and get insight into themselves and do the healing, instead of having to try to do it when it gets triggered and they're married and they have children they're trying to take care of at the same time. It's very little time to be able to focus on that. It's better to do it beforehand if you can.
I can honestly tell you.
But you can do it then.
You can. Oh, yeah.
And then they work on, one has had an addictive parent, and then kind of marries someone who is addictive, and they don't even know the person's addictive, and they don't even realize, the other person doesn't even realize they are. And so then someone's kind of codependent and feelings of abandonment, where the person's got an addiction to work on, and they've got children already, and they're trying to work on, how do I take care of little Johnny? And then at the same time, they've got all this healing to do, but it's okay. You can do it anytime. You just come in when you break down to break through. And
let's talk about that. And you a great example where somebody had an addictive parent, and then now they're in a relationship with somebody who's addicted to something, but they didn't know the addiction existed.
Exactly.
they almost as a magnet hold that person to them.
Right.
How does that work? Why does that happen?
Well, subconsciously they may know, or they may feel comfortable with that, or they know how to adapt to that. They had to adapt for a long time in their family, their system with their parents. And so it's just something like a dance. They're used to dancing, so they just kind of fall into it. And then
Interesting.
at the same time, they think, well, this person loves me, so this is better, I mean, because the first phase of a relationship is that, year and a half of what they call limerence, that oxytocin bonding going on. So it feels like you've recovered from it, but that doesn't last, but a year and a half. Now you're there with the person and you've got to realize, oh, wait a minute, and so you dealt with the wounds. Couples will often come together, they'll have similar kind of wounds that they got from their families of origin, their growing up years, but they may be taking a different stance to it. Like maybe they both had a narcissistic parent, but one child became kind of codependent. The other person became like the parent a bit, addictive or, focused on their needs. And so they're each taking a stance to handle this, but they're doing the opposite. And that isn't a good opposite attracts. Well, it can be because you're trying to find the middle ground, but for a while they polarize each other until they get into therapy. Then they can come and heal the wound together. So that opposite way of handling things can be good with help.
You made something clear in that, and it answers the question why we wind up with people that we know aren't good for us, like the person who's addicted. It came from parents or a parent who was, and now you're in a relationship with somebody who has an addiction. You didn't even know they had it.
Right.
You feel comfortable. So there's something there that you picked up on when you met them. But I'm going to go a layer deeper here. I believe it's also energy. We put out energy, we get energy back. I've seen it happen even on a dating app where somebody finds, I talk to lots of friends. I have friends who are single. They find people on an app and meet them, and it's the same type of person. Well, you didn't meet them already. You couldn't really feel them out. Maybe it's a phone conversation and some texting,
Right.
and you decide to meet. I think it's the energy is there. There's a certain transmission of energy, and it's almost as if you're throwing out a signal, like you're a radio tower. Each person is a radio tower. They're transmitting a signal that says, I'm looking for somebody who has an addiction or has challenges like that because I feel comfortable with it for whatever the reason is. Maybe I can help them. Maybe, whatever.
Right.
And they come to you. And they come to you.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of it is at a subconscious or an energetic level, in a sense, birds of a feather flock together, or the tribe that fits together,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
How about
Yeah.
some other things going on when it comes to relationships and finding those relationships that don't serve us or the ones that actually do serve us? Any other insight that you might have?
I like what you were saying. You've gotten in a group that's, I think it's always good. Whatever you want to work on, it's always good to get into I don't know what kind of group exactly it is, a men's group, you said.
Mm-hmm.
They say that it's excellent for men to be in a men's group, that all men should be in a men's group. That for their, emotional, spiritual, if you will, well-being, to their growth.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times men, traditionally are taught, to not be sitting there sharing all their deep feelings with each other. They're playing their sports or doing their games or whatever, and they aren't encouraged to do that. So it's an opportunity where you can really be authentic and, have that tribe to be with in a deep way. So that's good. And any kind of, any kind of problem that a person has, it's always good to, or problem or need or interest to be part of a healthy group and then you'll gravitate hopefully to people that treat you well in the group. But if you're in a healthy group and it's supposed to be focused on health, then it should work out. So
yeah, and that's essentially, and again, it's a new for me. It was on the recommendation of somebody who years ago, and he's been part of it for years. I'm talking going back, wow, at least 13 years, where he was at the top of his game, making lots of money, very successful, to this,
Mm.
getting divorced, lost a lot of money, the bad situation, and joining a group like this brought him back up, not even where he was, even higher. But
Wow.
it's interesting. One other guy I met, only known him a couple of weeks. He he was doing okay, and now he's not so much professionally. Some things happen personally, and he just feels like he's at the bottom and dejected, and just. And I looked at him and I said, "You don't realize what you have. There is something in you that is so genuine. You don't find it in other people. You are so grounded and like truly genuine. Like I want to hang out with him, and he's like younger than me. And it's like because you're real. Other people that they reek of BS. Some people do, and he doesn't. I said that's your secret weapon. He goes, yeah, people have told me that before. I said, well, listen, listen
Right.
to them. That's gonna move you forward. That's gonna cut through the clutter. But I don't think he sees it. And I believe that, like you said, when you all get together, especially men, because we don't share emotions with people and we're, just kind of just going every day at our lives. When you start sharing that stuff, it's empowering, and people
Absolutely.
see things that you're not seeing.
Exactly. And it's great you gave him that feedback, and then he'll hear it from other people too, I'm sure there. And that will help him.
Yeah.
And hope, yeah. So that it's so important to get in a group where you can get that emotional support or give that, because when you give it too, you get it back. Giving is receiving.
I don't try to. I'm not expecting anything back. I
Yeah.
just look at people, and if it's screaming inside of me, I have to say it because I want to help them.
Right.
And this one guy, by the way, he's already become spiritual in that he gets up every day at 5 o'clock, whether he's going to work or not, meditates, just practices yoga. And I said, you're already halfway there, but
Wow.
maybe he needs to talk to somebody like you, maybe, a
Right.
psychologist, therapy, to help him see a little bit more of why his mind is doing what it's doing.
Right, the cognitive behavioral therapy, because what we think, what we say to ourselves is what we're going to create. So even if he has all these good things, if he's saying the negative, it's going to,
Right.
it's not going to, he's got to be at that gratitude, like you say, and then the positive. So yeah, but he's getting that there too.
Yeah.
So that's perfect.
And it's also, I say before, some people are BS. It's also believing your own BS. You may be telling yourself that
Yes.
is not reality. Looking in the mirror, look at that. I've got that on my face. People don't see that. You're
Right.
BSing yourself. You're giving yourself reasons for not to move forward, maybe not to take self-care, whatever it might be. And it's always great talking with you. How do we connect with you? What's your website again?
Psychologists in Virginia, plural, in Virginia, all spelled out, psychologistinvirginia.com. And then I have another one too. It's called the Love Your Life Healing Center.com. It's got more on my books and my hypnosis, CD, MP3s and stuff. But the other one, is got all about my practice and everything. And so
Yeah.
phone numbers, emails and all that. So either one.
Thank you for the reminder on your books as well. They're so detailed, and your books are the navigational system to your mind. That's what it is.
Oh,
Right
thank
there.
you. I hope so. Trying
They
to
really
help.
are. Like if you're wondering about your partner, maybe you're thinking, talk to somebody else who suspects that their, other half has, bipolar situation. Uh,
Mhm.
this is not a self-diagnosis or a diagnosis book, but
No,
it can give you insight into a lot of that, right?
absolutely. Yeah. It's got all the main forms of therapy and little checklists how you can use them
Yes.
yourself,
Yeah.
all the different kind of mental health issues and treatments and different things, all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And it's got all Jung's spiritual stuff throughout it as well, Carl Jung. So it's got all the traditional effective therapies and Carl Jung and all that.
and easy to understand. So great talking with you, Ann. And appreciate you, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Steve.
And we'll see you next time. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.